How does the story of dropping camogie at 12 to potentially participating in the Olympics at 28 sound to you? Well, if you don't know, Ireland has a women's lacrosse team that is currently ranked 13th in the world. With women's lacrosse now being included in the Olympics for the first time, Ireland's Olympic qualification journey looks very promising. If you can only think of wild child when you think of the sport, that's fine. We're here to help. Meet Eimear Fitzpatrick, an Irish lacrosse sensation. Now 8 years into her journey, she has captained the Irish under-19 team and played with the senior squad in the World Championships. Her story is a shining example of the incredible potential hidden within the world of lacrosse in Ireland that could lead to achieving nearly every athlete's dream. If this sounds unimaginable to you, then stick around for this really engaging conversation with Eimear Fitzpatrick. Eimear, super excited to have you in studio with us. And
thank you for having me.
Like I just told you as well, my only reference to lacrosse is from Wild Child, so
yeah,
I'm definitely
that's okay.
interested in getting
You're
to learn
part
a bit
of the majority.
Great, okay. So before we just start off, a few random questions. If you were in Barbie Land, which Barbie do you think you would be?
I haven't watched the Barbie movie.
That's okay. Like if
I'm
you
so sorry.
It's okay. We'll go to another
Weird
question.
Barbie.
Ooh,
Weird Barbie. I'd be her. I'd be her. Yeah, for sure.
I actually did a quiz and I got Weird Barbie the first time. And we just did a quiz like about an hour ago. And then I got President Barbie. But
I'll do another quiz. But I'd be Weird Barbie.
Yeah, we'll do it after this.
I can't believe I haven't seen it yet, but anyway.
No, it's okay. And then what would you say is your go-to Starbucks order?
The salted maple and caramel cream cold brew.
Okay,
That's been it since that came in. Any kind of cream cold brew. Yeah.
Okay, I need to try that one. I think I've only been to Starbucks like twice.
That's okay.
And the first time Deb chose my order, so now I can say you chose my second order. And then what would you say is your favorite hype song at the moment?
It kind of is consistently Humble, Kendrick Lamar.
Oh.
That's not really like my style of music, and
Yeah.
I listen to very kind of sad indie music, but in terms of like a hype song for like before a game or gym or anything like that, it's kind of consistently Humble by Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, that one will never get
it's a
old.
good one.
It's
It's
a
a
classic.
classic.
One. Okay, so basically what we're going to be doing today, you brought some photos with you, so we're going to show the photo and then you can just share with us what the story behind the photo is. So here's the first one. So what is the story behind that photo?
That was taken by our lovely photographer at the World Championships last year in Maryland. If I'm not mistaken, I can only see my players behind me. If I'm not mistaken, it's the Germany game. I was just scared that I had the ball. But if I'm not mistaken, that was during our final game to seed for 13th place against Germany, which we ended up winning in double overtime. And then, yeah, that photo got around and my dad printed it and no, my best friend's mother printed it and my dad stuck it on the sitting room window so anyone who passed by our house could see it, but it's also currently hung up in the house, but it's a great photo. It's a good shot.
No, it is really great. And was that your first international competition that you went to?
No, the first international competition I went to was for the first Irish women's U19 team in 2019. We went to Peterborough in Canada, like just outside Ontario, and that would have been my first. Now, like much like all other sports, you don't get capped for your junior appearances, but that would have been my first international appearance with Ireland Lacrosse.
Okay. Yeah. And just going back to when you actually started playing lacrosse, so now you've been playing for about 8 years now. So how did you go about getting involved in the sport?
My sister and I were visiting my Auntie Mary on Long Island, and she moved over there when she was about 17 with her now husband, and they had kids, and then their kids had kids, and we were visiting them. So I have a lot of family in New York, and we were there for about 6 or 7 weeks, like quite a long stint of time. So a lot of it was just spending time with family and going to my auntie's grandkids' games. And so one of my cousins, Cadence, who actually just committed to University of Virginia, which is a really big school for lacrosse, she was playing a game, and I was watching, and I didn't really realise till the end of the game that I hadn't been on my phone for an hour. And as much as I played Gaelic football and I played camogie and everything growing up, but kind of, bit of a statistic, much like everybody else, kind of dropped off the face of sport kind of at 12, 13, like a lot of other younger girls. And I was much more of a theatre child. I kind of realised then at the end of the game that I just really enjoyed watching it, and I was so invested, and I was asking about the rules, and I thought, like, this is fun. And I was going into my 6th year. I wanted to do something other than school, library, home, kind of. That was pretty much my routine for all of 5th year. So I looked up Lacrosse Dublin or Lacrosse Ireland or something, and I stumbled upon Dublin Lacrosse, and yeah, I joined on the 13th of September 2017.
Wow.
Specifically, I remember the day. And I was 17. I was the youngest person to have joined the team. They were all much older than me, and the rest is history.
That's
literally,
really great. Yeah, I find it so amazing how you remembered the exact dates.
Yeah, no, it was, I remember the day. I remember going. I was, happy out. My dad dropped me down. I was happy out going down. Then I got so nervous when I got there. I was about 20 minutes early, and then I ended up being about 20 minutes late because I was lingering around for 40 minutes, all nervous. But I showed up, and yeah, I remember the first people I spoke to, who are still some of my best friends. One of them's my neighbour now. It was, literally the rest is history.
Would you say that you were a bit nervous to be picking up a sport in your late teens?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it did kind of ease the nerves when I showed up and kind of noticed a lot of the girls were quite a bit older than me. They won't be happy that I said that, but that definitely eased the nerves. I think the main thing that when I joined, I didn't think that I was really like going to go in head first. I thought, like, this is something casual I could pick up for, a couple of weeks or a couple of months and have a bit of fun and meet new people, like, while I'm studying. And I really got, quite invested quite early on. I started September. By October I had, bought my own stick and everything. And it definitely it was nerve-wracking at the start to kind of join. As much as women's sports now is a very positive culture and a very encouraging culture, I'm not sure everybody feels that way regardless of intention and stuff. So it definitely was a bit nerve-wracking after having really not even ran for a bus in about 5 or 6 years. Like, I bump into people I went to school with and they're like, you're gas, you didn't even do PE and then you showed up. But it was just something about that sport and that team in particular that really just brought me in, and I'm very happy about that. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so next photo. What is the story behind this one?
That's also at the World Championship last year in Maryland. That's I had the honour of being the flag bearer, which is something that's kind of unanimously voted among the coaching panel and the management panel. So I was incredibly honoured to fly the flag that year, and that's Katrina Dowd, who is just an incredible person, an incredible athlete, one of the biggest names in lacrosse, and she's been so great to give her time and commitment to Ireland lacrosse in the last 2 years, I guess. And so that's that picture. And I got, my family's from the Aran Islands originally, and my auntie Bridie manages a kind of traditional shop on Inishmore, and I got her to get us those paddy caps.
Okay.
So we were delighted, and then the men copied us for their tournament afterwards. We were the OG stamps there, but yeah, there are paddy caps that we all still have and wear.
And what would you say, just looking at that photo, that was one of your favourite memories when representing Ireland? Yeah,
I think, like, back in 2019, I was one of 4 captains, which was a huge honour as well, particularly for my first international appearance. I actually got concussed in the second week of that tournament, so I think the memories there kind of come in dribs and drabs. But just, having the honour of bearing the flag was something that I couldn't even kind of begin to fathom even at the time. And I remember it, and I started crying, and I was like, the state of me crying about this. I'm so proud to be Irish, and I always have been. I was raised through the Irish language, really immersed in the Irish culture, was educated through the Irish language. It's a really big part of who I am, and to represent Ireland on the international stage is one thing, and to fly the flag for not only the opening ceremony but for every game, and to lead the girls out and to lead that team out was a massive honour. So it's definitely one of my favourite memories. Yeah,
that's amazing. And before we go on, I just want to ask, so if you had to give like a quick little crash course on lacrosse, how would you go about explaining the game? So you brought your stick as well, so you can use that if you want to.
I don't know if the camera can see this. This is the stick. So this is the pocket. And this is the sticks that we got for Ireland lacrosse. They're great. I think to best explain it to Irish people is, a lot of people say it's very like camogie. Like, we do get a lot of camogie players, and you can always spot the camogie players. They still play one-handed, but it's kind of like hockey in the air. A lot of people say, like, the ball, like the pocket's not that deep. I'm afraid of smashing something in the studio now. The pocket's like not that deep. It kind of goes down here. You have to be able to see the ball over it, but you cradle the ball, like literally cradle like a baby. You kind of cradle it to keep it in your stick while you're running. And obviously we'd practice a lot of ground balls and stuff, because bad passes happen, balls are on the ground all the time. But yeah, I think kind of it's almost like a mix of hockey and camogie. It originally started as a Native American sport. It was kind of a sport for war almost for them, and it's a hard one to explain. But I think it's not hugely indifferent to camogie or hockey.
Okay, and how many players are on the field?
So there's, I suppose that depends who you ask. The way we play and the kind of international rules for the regular game is there's 10 players per team on the field. So there's 3 attackers, 3 midfielders and 3 defenders and a goalie. So that's 10v10. I know, if I'm not mistaken, America play, like the US colleges and the US leagues play 12s. Whether that's still a thing or not, I don't know. We've always played 10v10. And so, yeah, there's kind of 3 in each position and then 1 goalie.
And how long is a typical game?
4 15-minute quarters.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a 5-minute break between quarters and a 10-minute halftime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in terms of tackling, can I call it a tackle? How exactly do you do that? So say now the opposition, I need to always like illustrate using my like actions. So say now like I have the ball and I'm running and you want to tackle me to get the ball. How exactly do you go about doing that? Do you hit the stick? Or?
Yeah, so hitting the stick is called a check. So it is a non-contact sport. I mean, my bruises would prove otherwise, but it is a non-contact kind of semi-contact sport. So to check somebody's stick out of the ball, it can't be within their sphere, which is like this sphere around your head, because it'll be, you'll be fouled and it'll be called as a check through the sphere, check to the head if it's dangerous enough, which is carded. And so a lot of the rules are kind of involved around safety and stuff because it is non-contact, and we don't wear any padded equipment or any protection or anything like that. So to check somebody's stick, you have to kind of like, you can't hit between their hands where their stick is, so you can go wherever their hands are not, and you kind of clip their stick, but you have to show that you kind of come back up again. Whereas if you go down and follow all the way down through, that's a slash. And that's also a foul. It's very technical. But yeah, you kind of like clip somebody's stick and hope kind of the ball will pass out, or else you kind of just really like defend man on and kind of strong man on defense and hope that they, when they're switching their hands, that they drop the ball or they make a bad pass or whatever, but you can't outright tackle somebody, unfortunately.
Interesting. And would you say as well, you mentioned it's quite technical, but like picking up on all these rules, did you find it quite challenging? Or
I think it's definitely a beginner-friendly sport to get into. I think, and I know a lot would agree with me, when you're watching experienced players play and you know all the rules and you're kind of sitting back watching a high-level game and seeing not a lot of fouls, it's like it's an incredibly difficult sport to play without fouling because there are so many technical rules, and a lot of them are based around safety and a lot of them are probably a little bit outdated arguably, but it definitely is kind of, when you're going along, it is a beginner friendly sport to begin with. But then when you kind of start to bring the rules in and you start to ref the game properly and stuff, it can be very stop and start in the beginning with less experienced players, because there's a lot of stuff like if you're kind of defending somebody, like body contact defending somebody, and your arms extend out all the way, like your elbows are completely straight, that's considered a push because you're like pushing, but it's that motion of your extending your arms, and so that's a foul. And so even if you didn't physically push somebody, you still extended your arms. So kind of learning that technique, that kind of hug a tree technique and stuff, is something that we don't want to confuse beginner players with at the start of their journey with lacrosse. But as much as it is definitely a beginner-friendly sport, like, I mean, I picked it up, so if I can do it, anyone can do it, literally. It is definitely a beginner-friendly sport, but kind of when you get into it a lot more, you realise how many rules there are and how technical those rules are and stuff, and so kind of playing a full game without trying to get fouled is definitely a challenge.
But yeah, again, like I think you mentioned it as well, like any new skill or sport, the more you play, the easier it becomes. Yeah, so we'll move on to the next photo. So what is the story behind this one?
That is my baby face. That's my first international appearance. They're the 4 captains. So I'm on the far left in number 6, and then 14's Orla Buggy, Katie McCarthy and Georgia Scott, who are all still very, very close friends of mine. But we were the 4 captains for the U19's national team in Canada.
And one thing I've noticed when chatting to a lot of athletes is they always mention the friendship aspect. And would you say it's the same for you?
Yeah, huge. It's like the girls that I met on that first day and those first couple of weeks of lacrosse, and those even 3 particular girls in that photo are still really some of my closest friends. Georgia Scott on the far right there, she lives with me now.
Oh, wow.
I remember the first person I spoke to on my first day of lacrosse was a girl called Ivana Murphy, who is a veteran in Ireland lacrosse. She's been around for a very long time. She's a neighbour of mine now. And Laura Stokes, one of the team managers, has been, my absolute nearest and dearest best friend. And I can't, it's something that you can't really explain until you experience it yourself. And I know everybody who I'm close to in lacrosse would absolutely agree with me that kind of the friendships and connections you make literally all over the world is so valuable and is such a big part, particularly Ireland lacrosse. We're known for it when we go to tournaments. That tournament in particular, actually, the service women on the college campus that we were staying on, the women who gave us our breakfast and lunch and dinner and took care of us and everything, said that win or loss, and there were a lot of losses in that tournament, no matter what it was, we had a smile on our face. And not only were we so friendly and polite to other teams and to staff members, but to each other. And it's not conceited or fake or anything. It really is just such a positive and friendly environment to be in.
Let's chat a bit more about the lacrosse scene in Ireland. So you've been playing now for about 8 years. What does it look like? Would you say you've seen a change since you started playing?
Yeah, definitely. I know that the league was at, quite a good and big place just before I had started. I know in my first year, UCD in particular were kind of the hub and the anchor for lacrosse in Ireland. They had a blue and a white team, which really meant anything between 40 and 50 people could have showed up on one of those domestic league game days. And, they won the league, quite often. Galway won the league quite a few times. Cork had quite a strong team. And kind of the year before I joined and the year I joined, those kind of first 2 years were quite, as much as we didn't have the spectators or the good fields or anything, we are a minority sport, we're a minority women's sport, and that comes with what it comes with. But definitely COVID kind of tore apart essentially really everything that a lot of people had worked very hard to grow, and it's been quite difficult trying to get that back to where it was. I know Dublin Lacrosse, I'm the club manager for Dublin Lacrosse this year, and we're in a good position, thankfully. I know it's easier for us with not being affiliated to a university. We don't have as many, I suppose, rules to adhere to. We don't have to have university only players and everything like that. We have everybody of any age who just wants to come and play along, and we're in a good position. We have good numbers, but there's a few girls involved with UCD Lacrosse who have been putting a lot of work in the last 2 years, but it's a lot of work to get it to where it is, unfortunately. I know this year our biggest, I'm league coordinator and I'm working with all the teams. Our biggest kind of focus is not only recruitment but retention, and doing what we can do and kind of trial and error everything to retain players, because it's great for me to sit there, stand there and say, I promise you won't regret this, and I promise you won't regret joining. And, for me, it was the best decision I'd ever made. And I'm trying to explain to people that could be for them as well, if that makes any sense. But we're definitely struggling. We don't get any funding. Ireland Lacrosse themselves as an organisation don't get any funding. So we kind of have to scrap for grants and stuff where we can, if we can. We really rely on player fees essentially. So we're definitely in a struggling place, but those involved are really, really working quite hard to get it, and have been for years, to get it to a better place and just share the sport and share that community with more people.
Yeah, that's great. And so it was recently announced that lacrosse will be included in the 2028 Olympics. Yeah. Which is super exciting for the sport as well. So what do you think this would actually mean for lacrosse in Ireland?
Hopefully funding. And I know that sounds kind of not everything's about money, but unfortunately for the growth of a minority sport and the growth of a minority women's sport, it unfortunately pretty much is the anchor of everything. And hopefully with us being in the Olympics, and now obviously we have to qualify first and everything, but the talent that Ireland Lacrosse has, it's just so incredible, for such a small country. And I know that we're everywhere all over the world, but for such a small country, we're currently seated at 13th in the world, which is a massive achievement. And that's with no funding, and that's with relying on player fees and really relying on everybody who volunteers their time to Ireland Lacrosse to grow and spread not only the game but the team themselves. And for the Olympics, it's huge. Like the men's lacrosse was in the Olympics years ago, if I'm not mistaken, like the 70s and the 80s. But this is the first time that women's lacrosse will be in the Olympics, which is massive. Now it is an adapted version of the sport, much like rugby. Like I know rugby in the Olympics is rugby sevens. So this is lacrosse sixes. Yeah. So it's a modified version of the game. It's less stop and start. It's quicker. It's 6 players versus 6 players, including the goalie. So you're playing all positions at all times. So it definitely is a different take on it, and even very experienced lacrosse players have to adapt and adjust to that new version of the game, I suppose. Like 2028 is not that far away, but it definitely is a massive step for the sport as a whole. And hopefully we'll see Ireland lacrosse get a little bit more recognition for everything that we do and for how far we've gotten with very little resource. So hopefully we'll see more resources and everything come from that.
Yeah. I think it's incredible as well to say that you're ranked 13th and there's so many obstacles that you've had to overcome, but it just shows the passion that is really within the sport in Ireland.
Yeah, and that's for everyone, like the coaching panel, the management panel, everybody kind of behind the scenes, and the players just really driving that. And you know, it's exhausting and can sometimes be disheartening, and I know that I speak on behalf of a lot of people in minority sports and particularly women's sports when you say that, but hopefully this will, particularly in the lead up to it, because you can't show up at the Olympics with no resources or no practice or anything. So hopefully we'll see kind of in the lead up to 2028 a lot more recognition and thereby resource and funding and everything.
Yeah. In terms of international matches as well, would you say that Ireland takes part in quite a few international tournaments regularly? Or?
Not enough, unfortunately, and that is mainly due to the cost of it. It's like Ireland lacrosse aren't special in not receiving any government funding. You know, I know a lot of countries and nations don't receive much government funding, if any at all. So unfortunately, not enough. We have partaken in the ELF Easter tournament, which is the European Lacrosse Federation. So it's a lot of the lacrosse tournaments in Europe in particular are kind of fun social things, which are a great thing to go to, because not only do you get kind of game time and you get to play lacrosse and everything, but you get to meet people in a really fun environment and everything. But unfortunately there's just not been enough resources to kind of fuel more competitive international tournaments. The ELF is probably the main one, and Ken Galluccio Cup is another big tournament that's a club championships for European lacrosse teams. So that's not even Ireland lacrosse, that's whoever wins the domestic league. So unfortunately there's probably not enough international appearances outside of the major tournaments like the European Championships or Worlds, but hopefully we'll start to see more kind of competitive international tournaments in the lead up to 2028 in particular, and it'll be steady after that, hopefully.
And so you also mentioned you're the league coordinator for Ireland Lacrosse and you play for Dublin Lacrosse Club as well. So can you maybe just share a bit more about the Lacrosse League in Ireland?
Yeah, so currently we have, I'm after taking on from Dana Alexa, who did a great and very thankless job over the last couple of years. It's been hard, particularly since COVID, but currently we have Dublin Lacrosse Club, which is ourselves, UCD Lacrosse, Stags Lacrosse and DCU Lacrosse. They're all the Dublin-based teams at the minute. DCU Lacrosse is only new. They were playing as Drumlachs last year, which was kind of Drumcondran, and trying to grow the sport out on the north side a little bit more. We're a bit south side heavy at the minute. And then I know that there are people doing a lot of work down in Cork to revive what had been there kind of pre-2017, and Galway, there's a handful of girls in Galway trying to do quite a lot to revive the sport there as well, with in NUI. And then Belfast, Queen's Belfast have quite a strong team, and Dee McKim up there has done very hard work for a very, very long time, and you know, it's paid off. They've had strong numbers over the years, but you know, unfortunately it's just kind of, that's it. Like we have a game day coming up on Saturday, and it's the teams that can field enough, I suppose, is Dublin Lacrosse, UCD Lacrosse and Queen's Belfast. So unfortunately there's not, I suppose, recognised enough as a sport. And I think COVID, like for ourselves, it just took away a lot of what we had, and there's just probably not enough recognition. I know a lot of people went back to the sports that they had played growing up after COVID. Like I know a lot of people who went back to play Gaelic football and camogie, and you know, better for them. You know, it's great to see more people partaking in sports and more teams coming up and stuff. But I think COVID just had a huge effect on the sport really as a whole in the country. So we are working very tirelessly to get the league to a better place and to kind of share that with people and you know, get a larger community, because it's a great place. It's a really great community to be a part of, and kind of wanting to share that with more people.
We'll move on to the next photo. We'll probably end off with this one, actually. So what is the story behind this photo?
That's me and my dad. I just think it's a great photo. I didn't even know it was being taken. That was the same photographer, Roger. He was fantastic. He followed us around everywhere. He was great. But that was the first game that my mom and dad had come to internationally, and it was our game against Hong Kong, which they were very favoured to win. They're a very, very strong and talented team, and we won that game in overtime. And I know we had national team trials there last weekend, and one of the questions that we had to do for player profiles was, what was your favourite lacrosse memory? And at 6 or 7 minimum, I heard people saying, oh, Hong Kong. You know, even girls who weren't there saying, watching the Hong Kong game, it was so exciting. And unfortunately, we don't get to have that type of competition and really have that feeling of competitiveness and really having to work tirelessly to win something or to prove something. So I think that hug describes it all. But that's a great photo of my dad and I that Roger took. Yeah, that's that same tournament last year.
I can imagine also just having a support system in sport is what you get from your friends and your family. It also just makes the biggest difference as
massive well. Yeah, no, I'm incredibly lucky and incredibly privileged. My whole family, particularly my parents, who chauffeured me around for 3 years before I got a driver's license, and chauffeured me around the country as well. But yeah, support system is massive, and I know that not everybody has that privilege to say that they have family and friends at home who will just put everything into them. And that's really what my family and my friends have done. Like, even when my friends thought it was weird, and my friends were like, what are you doing? Like, when they didn't know what lacrosse was, and everybody was asking me if I played Quidditch for years, and it's still kind of a running joke, but they were still so supportive, and they really showed up and always asked me how it's going, and are always so proud, and, you know, buying the jumpers with my number on them when they come around and everything. And not everybody has that privilege, but I think what's great about not only lacrosse as a sport, but Ireland lacrosse is it's such like a chosen family. And I'm cringing to myself hearing myself say that. And I think for years when I heard people say that, like, their sport, their teams and their clubs were like their family, to me it was like, oh, but they're not. Like, but they really are. Like, it's like Dublin lacrosse and Ireland lacrosse literally mean everything to me and have gotten me through, you know, jobs and my career, and have helped me with my career and college and everything. Like, they've just, the support system that the lacrosse community in Ireland provides is just such a positive place to be, and I just would love for people to experience what I've had the privilege to experience with that as well. So being in the Olympics, I think, will highlight the sport more, and will hopefully gauge a lot more interest and attention in it and stuff. And like, not only will it be great for the sport, and will be great for the country and the team, you know, and the talent and competition and all those kind of stuff on paper, but for people to actually have the privilege of experiencing such a positive and just really, really great community to be a part of, I'll be happy to see more people get to have that for themselves. Yeah,
it's super exciting as well. So, Eimear, if you had to like summarize how sport has impacted your life and why you'd encourage other young girls and women to play sport, what would you say?
Yeah, like, I think fortunately I'm someone who gets it. Like, I get, like, at 12 when I kind of went into secondary school and people were better than me, and I was like, this is, you know, it's not fun anymore, and it didn't seem encouraging, and it was kind of competitive. And I think because women, particularly, like, that's 10 years ago now, particularly women's sports has come such a long way, that feeling of, like, that kind of territorial feeling and stuff has definitely gone away, and people aren't just in sport to be competitive and for it to be everything, and, you know, work tirelessly towards it, but also for fun. Like, I never saw the fun in it really growing up. I think it stopped becoming fun when I went into secondary school, and that's why, you know, alongside, I'd say, the majority of girls who are 12 and 13 kind of pulled out and thought, like, this isn't for me. And I was slightly more of a musical theatre child, and I thought, like, you can kind of only be one thing, but that's just absolutely not true at all. I really do believe that there's a sport for everyone, and I know that not a lot of people feel that way, and I definitely am someone who did not feel that way. I thought, well, like, it's not for me, so what do you mean there's a sport for everyone? But, like, I truly believe that there is a sport for everyone. I think lacrosse in particular is a great sport when when other sports can be so big and the world of that sport can be so big and intimidating and kind of daunting and you think you might drown, like I think lacrosse is in such a great position right now that not only is it finally getting the recognition that it deserves, you know, for stuff like the Olympics, but it still is such a small community that it's just, I don't know how to kind of explain that it's just it's a good time to kind of join something like lacrosse. But sport in general has given me like literally worldwide opportunities and friendships and connections and everything, and it's taught me a lot. It really has, like patience and perseverance and really having to work for something but then seeing the results of that work, and and just like my health and my fitness and my well-being and finding joy in stuff like hiking, you know, which before, you know, wheezing up the hill, like and now it's like I truly do find joy in stuff like that, and you know, I just think sport's incredibly important.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Just before we end off, if anyone's listening or watching and they want to get involved in lacrosse, how do they go about doing that?
So I mean, if you want to email, it's clubs@irelandlacrosse.ie, but really we're all the teams are on social media platforms, particularly Instagram. So Dublin Lacrosse is on Instagram, Ireland Lacrosse, it's Ireland W Lax for the women's side of things, and just like DM any of those and they'll send you in the right place. And Ireland, it's just Ireland Lacrosse as well for any men who want to join up too. And Dublin is a women's plus team, so we welcome anybody from the LGBTQ plus community, anybody at all who wants to join the women's sport and play that game in particular. But Ireland W Lax is the Instagram, and clubs@irelandlacrosse.ie if you want to send an email, and you know, anybody and everybody is welcome.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. Thanks for tuning in. We hope to see you again for the next episode. Be sure to subscribe to Her Sports social platforms to get the latest women in sports content.